As architects, we are the leader of the building profession, and I'd like you to all go away thinking about this, because architects need to maintain this position of prominence within our field, and we effectively need to bring in those people who are going to help us do our job properly. So they might be a structural engineer, a mechanical engineer, a noise consultant, an asbestos consultant, an innumerable number of people, but we are the people who are advising on these things, and clients expect us to be the person who has a good handle on all those people that come together to make their project work successfully. We agree on when we're going to be paid. We need to make sure we're paid regularly and at key milestones. We talk about when we might perform this commission and what resources we have in place. And then finally, we impose a set of conditions of appointment, and usually these are defined by the RIBA, and we encourage our clients to sign up to those particular arrangements. When we're liaising with the client for the first time, we always check them out to make sure they're somebody bona fide, so we do a company's house check on them. We also need to maintain good collection of fees, so I regularly meet with colleagues in order to find out where my debtors are up to, and we do a regular check on our debtors over a 30, 60, 90-day period, and then sometimes, unfortunately, we have to involve lawyers to recover those final debts. And then the final slide, which has got the most incriminating information in its feed, so you can gloss over this, but this is just a snapshot of the practice, my practice, as we operate on a day-to-day basis. I need to know exactly how much money is coming in. So the top three lines there are income from my Liverpool, London and Manchester practices, giving me a cumulative income of money. And then I have to look at all the amounts of money that go out on a monthly basis for all the things we have to pay for. And the biggest single thing that an architect pays for is the salary of you guys. It's at least a third, sometimes even a half, sometimes of a month, of the amount of money that I have to actually commit out to ensure that I've got the best staff producing the best information. Because we are a service industry, we're not creating a bottle or a shoe. We're creating something that's a piece of design that only comes from individuals' endeavours. We also have rent and rates that we have to pay. We have to heat and light our buildings. We have to pay for printing, telephones, legal fees, cleaning insurance, all the things you'd imagine any business would have to pay. And when I add all those incomes and all those outgoings, I hopefully find that at the end of the month we have what's called a net cash inflow, and that is the amount of money that's come in is more than the money that's gone out. And if that keeps going, then hopefully we have a business that we can then reinvest into, and we have a longevity. And that is it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amazingly efficiently done.
Thank you.
We were talking about Revit earlier. I was wanting to ask you what you pay for a license as a company.
They're very expensive.
But is it? Give us
Uh,
20,000
per year, 80,000.
£80,000. Okay. Now that's a big practice, but even small practices, they're very, very substantial costs.
So it's £3,500 per licence per year.
And then the other thing, which you spoke about last time you were here, Adam. See, my practice was I know Adam did work for us for a short period, but my practice is very different from Adam's. I worked very much in the public sector for organisations. In fact, we did work for Liverpool University on a number of occasions. And these are they're both blue chip, and they're also very sort of methodical, and everything has to be done properly, and there's a system. Adam sometimes is working for much more cutting-edge developer types who are there very much to make a profit and sometimes make a risk. And what I think you spoke about last time was, first of all, the upfront work you sometimes have to do for nothing, and secondly, all this precision that looks fantastic with those forecasts. Adam is sometimes taking a view on some jobs that have gone horribly wrong, and he literally takes 50 grand on the chin because he knows he can make, well, he hopes he can make 150,000 on another job. But just speak briefly about that, because it's a very different world, and it's a world which this risk, it suits some people and it doesn't suit others.
It's a good question, Pete, and I'm sort of reluctant to go into great detail with you guys because it's a side of our profession that I don't really like. We are highly skilled. You guys will be highly skilled professional people in a couple of years, and it really grates with me that some clients expect us to work literally for nothing. They're asking you to produce a piece of skilled design work, and it's almost like a speculation whether they decide to actually give you the project. And you've therefore already given away the real skill that you guys are 4 years in.
Absolutely.
You're training already. Why do we give this away? No other profession, I think, is so relaxed about giving away the skill for an undefined amount of money. But we are in a commercial world, and that is the reality of the way I have to work sometimes. I have to produce what we call pitches for clients. We have to put a scheme forward. We really give it a very, very high degree of effort. I only 6 months ago designed a hotel for the Paddington Village site that's just behind here. We probably spent £25,000 producing that pitch. I think it's a fantastic building we designed, but we didn't win the job, and that was it. It was just, sorry guys, better luck next time. We were pitching for a builder, which is also slightly irritating, but that's just the way it goes. When you do win those projects, though, the upside is significant. So we have to balance those loss leader projects that we call them against the upside of winning good work, remaining very close and nimble to some of these private developers that Peter referred to, who are making lots of money. And if you can align with them and be on the right side of the upside when they make a lot of money, you do well, and it hopefully balances out, and it does for us balance out okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to let Adam go, unless anybody's got a burning question, because it's not often we have someone of Adam's calibre to come and be our guinea pig. Any questions? Okay.
Yeah, I remember last time somebody asked me, this, I sensed it was a sadness. One of your students said, but when do you design anything? And I went away from that lecture thinking, yeah, it is really quite a sorry situation that, and I don't want you to leave this room thinking that once you're running, hopefully a lot of you will be running your own practice one day, you mustn't lose that sense of, this is what you're here for. You're a designer, ultimately, but you just need to have some time for this side of things as well, because ultimately this is what keeps the till running.
And I think what's interesting is, although I'm not in Adam's world, because I read so many case studies for practices like Adam and much bigger ones in London, very often when you build up a good working relationship with a commercial client, those people will kind of see you all right.
Yeah.
There was a maturity in you strike a deal, they'll come and they'll just speak to Adam.
Yeah.
How much to do this next job? And Adam will say, well, it's either this lump sum or this percentage. And they go, right, you've got the job. And they'll come again and again. But the thing is, when stuff goes wrong or you end up submitting it for planning approval 3 times, you just have to take it on the chin. That's the deal. Because everybody wants an easy life. They just want an architect who's going to do the stuff and not make a fuss. And this is really a very different world from the world I inhabit, where we're always having to justify our fee and justify our position and demonstrate the best value. Adam, because he's dealing with commercial people, he can strike a deal. And that maturity and that relationship is quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, example, I'm presuming you all walk around Liverpool looking around. We're just about to start on site on a project sort of near the waterfront. It's called Infinity, and it's 3 tower residential buildings of 38 stories, 34, 32 stories high. There's 1,000 residential units in that building. Now that client is a client of ours that we've done probably 20 projects for over the last 5 or 6 years. I didn't have to pitch for that job. The client walked into our office, said, Adam, loved what you did last time. Will you design me this building, which will probably be one of our biggest buildings. It's a construction value of £145 million. So I didn't have to pitch. The fee was sort of pre-agreed because we have almost an agreed fee with this particular client. So that's an example. So hopefully the next couple of years you'll see those towers coming up, and you'll remember me.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Pete.
Yes, of course. Just escape. Inject.
Best of luck, everyone.
Are you E or F?
I'm sure you'll make it.
Just pull it out.
Pull it out, yeah.
So small, I can't bloody see. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Have you got the bit it goes
Yeah,
in?
I've got the other bit. Yeah.
All right,
Lovely.
thanks very much indeed. Okay, see you. Bye-bye. Right, okay, well I hope that's helpful. These things, which may seem difficult to get your head around or even boring at the moment, what I found as a student, donkeys years ago, is sometimes they dawn on you 2 years on. You know, a lot of things you learn at university don't always necessarily totally relevant that second, but they stick in your mind. And as I say, they're an interesting practice, and they do, if you end up going for an interview there, they do treat their staff quite well. So we were looking at types of people, and I'm going to rattle through this because it's a little bit bullshitty, but it's interesting to try and do this thing, and some of this might ring bells with you. So imagine you're in an office and you're working alongside people. Some of them are important because you're having to work with them, or some of them are important because they're your boss. Here's a way of categorizing. So the monitor-evaluator is the sort of analytical, critical, impartial, cool type. The specialist is the person who's very enthusiastic about their field. The plant is the person that we like to think we are, which is the creative innovator, the person who comes up with ideas. Not everybody's like that. Other people maybe work in a more plodding way. The resource investigator is they'll take an idea from somebody else, and then they will make them work. They appropriate them and make them happen. They're the people who will lead it through. The implementer, they're the people who like getting everything done on time, but they don't like change and chaos. I'm a little bit like that myself. I was asked to do something on Friday by Showman, very late on, and whoa, gosh, it's a big thing. How am I going to get it done? I'm the sort of person who likes to be super organized, and then I know where I do it well in advance, and then my life is a nice, calm place. Coordinator, this is someone who's a good delegator, and is good at getting the best from other people. So in a big practice, that's really important, because quite often to get the best out of the team is important. The shaper, so they're the person who's challenging the team, good at interacting, dynamic, getting everybody to improve and get the best out of it. The completer finisher is one of those annoying people who likes everything precise and exactly right. I'm definitely not one of those people. I'm a real broad brush person. But we have got people in the office who just like everything absolutely perfectly nailed. And finally, the team worker. So great at oiling the cogs, quite often unobtrusive in the background, but they're always just making sure everybody's happy and they're all working together. So you may recognize some of those, you may not. Leadership styles, and this is important to try and make sane or try and get some sense out of weird practices that you might work for. And there are some very, very strange people out there running practices, some of whom come and do crits here. I can assure you, if you're working for them in the office, you'd think differently about them. Anyway, dictatorial is what it says it is. You've got this one person who's a dictator who says, do this, do that, get on with it. It's not a debate. Draw it the way I've designed it, please. It's not a discussion. Autocratic is a bit the same, but actually the whole company works that way. So it might not just be one person. There might be a team of 3 or 4 partners. But basically, once they've decided something, you get on with it, you draw it up, you do what you're told. There are lots of systems in place, like Adam was describing there. Lots of systems you must work with. Consultative is someone who obviously is seeking an opinion. They might ask you. They may not accept what you say,
but they're very interested to hear what everybody's got to say. Ted Cullinan's office is like that, Richard McCormack's office is like that. Quite often, it may well be the boss gets his own way, but only because they're the best at design, only because intellectually they're the sharpest in the box, and that's why they are running the company, not because they're dictating to you what to do. Democratic, well, we all have, that's a situation where we all have a say, and it may well be if you formed, 4 of you got together and formed a business, that you have this democratic way in which you work, and you've all got to agree before you can move forward with the project. Participative, that's a sort of enlightened boss who is really trying to find out from everybody what they feel is the best way of doing it, and then they might sort of move forward based on everybody's ideas of the best way of doing it. And then laissez-faire. You wouldn't think that bosses like that exist, but they certainly do. Basically, they don't really care. As long as the thing's chugging along, they're not actually losing money. They just give out the work and they just say, get on with it. They hardly ask you what's going on, which is can be a bit alarming. And when I'm reading the diaries of people in their year out, they hate that because they hate to be just left all at sea with nobody really checking what they're doing or worrying about the output that they're doing. Okay, so that was a little bit of theory about the sorts of people you come across in a practice. The last bit of this lecture today is about marketing. And again, sadly, bits of this do come up in the exam because it's considered important. So some of the principles we'll go over again when we do the revision session, but here we go. Marketing is, well, first of all, you're not going to get any work unless people know about you. Okay? Joanna used to work for Stephen Hull, top guy in America. Amazing project. And you would think someone of that caliber, people just were beating to the door to ask him to do work. 30% of the staff of Stephen Hull are involved in marketing and promoting the company. 30% of his staff, and it's not a big staff, I don't know if there's 50, might be smaller, are involved in promoting the company. And that's a practice that were top people, won loads of awards, amazing stuff in the mags. So it's just an indication that marketing and publicity is important for everybody. Marketing is the general term that covers everything. So it's, promoting your services, it's carrying out the market research, what's going on, it's ensuring you understand what your customers want, and then checking that you have satisfied them. So it's the whole gambit. Publicity is the sort of ripples in the pond. So publicity might be just getting an article published about yourself in the AJ. It may be being interviewed on the radio. It can be all sorts of things. It's not necessarily stuff that you're paying to put out there. It's the sort of general making sure everybody has got your mind in their head. Advertising is the direct business and obvious business of promoting the company. So that would normally be communicating through a medium where the sponsor is identified. So DGC, best at blah, 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 or, DGC, fulfill all your needs, whatever it is. It's going to be a very controlled message. You're only going to put out a really focused thing that you're absolutely brilliant, whereas, of course, with the publicity, if the AJ write an article about you, it might be 75% complimentary, 25% critical, who knows? But when you are doing the advertising, you're paying for it, it's obviously going to be very, very narrowly focused, targeted at the people you want to get to. And the last term, which is rephrased, is branding. So branding is when you basically have a particular ethos that you want everybody to be aware of. So the classic example in architectural circles is Foster's. Foster's have a very, very tight control on how their brand can be used, how their intellectual property can be used, when Sir Norman Foster himself is involved, and all of that stuff is very, very carefully controlled. And it's something that you might want to think about as you develop a house style, as you develop your company, that you want it always to exude a particular style. I used to work for Austin Smith Lord, who are still in Liverpool, and they had a very strong branding style that they wanted to get out there as being really well thought of designers. If you were starting tomorrow and you were thinking about marketing, what would you need to consider? Well, first of all, what's the practice's philosophy? As I said to you before, are you just out there to show that you're really sharp and you're going to deliver? You're a service-driven thing? Or are you out there to show you've got the cleverest ideas and the most sensitively designed buildings on the planet? What's your aspirations? Now, you might think everybody just wants to grow big, just like Adam. Big, successful company. But that's not the case. Many of my friends have deliberately kept their practices below 12, because below 12 is a very small little family that needs hardly an organization. So when I was a partner, I would spend 4/5 of my time actually doing the business of being an architect. Design, or managing projects, or speaking to clients. Only 1/5 of my time would be spent doing all the management, all the stuff, the boring stuff we talked about today. My hunch would be that Adam, we should have asked him actually, I wouldn't mind betting that Adam spends 4/5 of his time doing all the management stuff, and only 1/5 of his time dipping into projects, speaking to clients, and keeping an eye on what's going on. He has a team of people beneath him that deal with that sort of thing. The type of projects we would like to work on. So again, you might think this is idealistic, but contemporaries of mine went out to try and do work in the museum and art gallery sector, have been very successful, worked for the Tate and the V&A, because they just said, this is what we want to do. We're really excited about this as a sector. We think there are really interesting people who work there. They're challenging design projects, and they just targeted narrowly, and got to speak to the right people and managed to get work. How to get the message out? So, having decided what sectors you want to go for, what sort of a practice you want to be, then you'd need to decide how we're going to communicate. And of course, the whole social media thing now is a big deal. It's relatively inexpensive to do. It's expensive in terms of time, but my nephew, Timmy, is one of the guys who's in charge of, or is the business person behind Baltic Warehouse, the food court thing, and he's forever posting posts on Twitter and all the rest of it to promote the thing. This is happening next week, etc., etc. Targeting specific clients. I'm sure none of you are really interested in this, but if you were and you found out about marketing and you read the theories, they would tell you all sorts of guff about how you go about marketing. But in architectural world, it's all about personal contact. It's all about targeting specific companies and individuals. It's all about doing a good job and getting recommended or doing another job for them. It's not about send a letter out to 1,000 people, phone 500 of them up, hope 10 of them come back to you. That's a model that's used in other fields, but it just simply doesn't work for architects. It's all to do with people who are likely to give you work, targeting those people. And, oh yes, there's a little quip here, which I haven't put up here, but which is, luck is what happens when preparation meets an opportunity. And this is the point, really. When we've tried to track as a practice where our work has come from, it's really random. Sometimes you just bumped into somebody on a train, or somebody's brother had something or other. But it's all to do with getting the message out there so people are aware of your company, so that if they think, oh, we need an extension to our school, and then they say, well, Joe Blogg's next door, he said they did a great job, we'll ask them to do it. So keeping people in your mind. Things to do, well, that's the nuts and bolts. If you really were setting up tomorrow, you would want to photocopy this sheet. because this is what you would need to do. And you might well, one of my colleagues, Joe Day, who used to teach with me last year in 4th year, set up her practice 2 years ago, and she would have spent probably 1/3 of her time doing all of this sort of stuff to start with, because she didn't really have that much work. She was just wanting to get the message out there. So she did all of these things. And now, I think she's been going 3 years. She's had to employ people. She's got more work than she can cope with. She's still having to do this stuff, but now she's got lots of work. I don't think that's meant to be there. We've done that, haven't we? Summary. So, think about it. If you were going to set up tomorrow, and I have tutored more than one person in March who's running perfectly successful practices. They did set up in the year out, and now they've got 2 or 3 people working for them. It's certainly possible. It's super risky. I don't recommend it, but you need cash to survive because you're always paid in arrears. So it's important to monitor profit and loss, cash flow and resources, and you saw that with Adam's very, very complex systems. That's exactly what he's doing. He was monitoring profit and loss there. He was monitoring his cash flow because you could see when he was going to invoice people, and he was monitoring how long people have been spending on things. There are many people in the world, and what sort of person are you, and what sort of person is your boss? So when you're completely puzzled at this absolute idiot who's, rushing around, just try and imagine, try and put them in a pigeonhole, and it sometimes helps you get along with them okay. Or decide, do you know what, I can't work for this person anymore. They're totally unreasonable. I'm going to move on. And finally, marketing is essential for any business. It's something I've got to say that as a practice we were rubbish at, or are still rubbish at. We relied on getting work because we did a good job. People coming back to us, or people referring us to other potential clients. And it's not a great plan. We should have done more. We should have done more of all those things that I'm lecturing to you about, as well as doing a good job and being asked again. Because you can't guarantee that clients will stay with you forever. So you always need new clients coming through. You can't rely on your existing clients. Okay, so that's your reading. And next week it's health and safety. And that's it. Thank you very much.